tricks to taking off this trim. Almost every one of these cars that I get, I see scratches down here because the shocks will extend more when you take it off of the car. Yeah, in fact, Blake, if you want to be a famous YouTuber, you can help me out with this part. Just all I'm going to have you do is just push up on this, and yeah, you can do it from that corner. So what I'm going to do is, to start off, I'm just going to actually take it off from up here first. Go ahead and put pressure against it, like upward pressure. So now I can take it off down here, and I can avoid scratching that up. Technically I could put it back on, but I'm not going to yet. Then I take off the power steering fluid cap, and then we can take off our screws that hold on. These are just 90-degree turn lock tab screws. They can be tricky. So one of the tricks that I like to do is use a flathead with a really fat head, which will help prevent it from slipping off. All right, so you want to pay attention to the ball socket, or the ball for the socket for the because that's what you have to get it over. That's why I took this cap off, because this has to slide out, but this has to slide over. You also want to watch this up here and make sure you don't scratch your fender. All this can be kind of tricky to remove, and it does help to remove the air box, but it's not entirely necessary. So once you pop it out, then back here you have a light, which is, it can be tricky, especially your first time removing the connector on the LED light, and then the whole thing just slides out, and then you just throw it on the ground like a piece of trash. Not really. Okay, and then we can throw this shock back on, and then do the same thing on the other side. Do a little dance. And I know it's an extra step, but you saw how quick it was to remove that. It's totally worth not scratching your carbon fiber to do it this way. Now this, you don't have to do it. This side you have a little bit more leniency on with the cap. So if you're trying to do this and you just pulled your engine in and it's hot or something, you don't technically have to take that off, but this is a cold engine and we're gonna take advantage of that right now. This back one, the last one I'm gonna do, is the hardest one to do and undo. And in fact, for this, I actually am gonna grab the fatter flathead. For whatever reason, this one is always difficult to remove. And it's even more difficult to get it to lock. So if you're struggling with that one, just know that you're not alone. There we go. Take our connector off. I'm gonna lift it up, slide it out. Bing, bang, boom. This isn't necessary for any sort of facelift endeavors, but since this one we're doing all LMX stuff on it, we're not going to be retaining our factory active wing. These grills that are on the side, you can remove those entirely. They will be in the way of the brackets that we're putting on there. This car previously had a cheap aftermarket wing on it, and the fitment of those is just terrible. It really is. It's bad. So I struggle with those because they're a lot cheaper than the OEM wings. They fit so poorly. It's hard for me to justify installing them. So I pulled it off this car when I first got it. It doesn't match the carbon of the car. The quality is poor. It's not my thing. So taking out the left tail light, you don't have to remove that mesh screen because you can actually access it from inside the wheel well, this further inside nut. On this side, there's the secondary air injection pump that sits right there that blocks your access from this direction, so you have to get this bolt from on top. Most people put like spacers, so like you'll see, if you take these off, you'll see like somebody stacked washers. The base plate that fits on here goes like this, And people are attempting to elevate the height of this to match the spoiler. So generally when you're aligning the body panels back here, which I've done on almost every car I've had come in here, especially since I'm taking all this stuff apart to do a manual conversion anyway, so I already have to access all this stuff. First thing I do is I adjust the wing to make sure that the wing is flush with the quarter panels. Once the wing is flush, then you can make the other adjustments. But what people don't realize is you don't actually need to put washers right here. You can just loosen this bolt and these things slide up and down. So the adjustment is already built into this piece, but people just get lazy and they're like, oh, I've already got everything put on, I don't want to make that adjustment. And it's like, dude, just go the extra mile and do it the right way and don't stack washers that I have to look after all the time. So usually when I get one of these, I just take all that off. This one is it doesn't serve the same function as it would with the factory setup that it serves with the fixed wing setup like the GT or the competition would have come with stock. It's a little bit different because just the bumper sits up here. You don't technically even have to bolt the bumper down. You can for the support. Okay, so now we've got this active wing totally loose and there's a connector. So we're just gonna, the connector is on a little clip. You just push this clip in and then it slides up. All these little things have little clips, but this is the lock for it. So if you're taking it off or it comes off, you can just slide it back down. To take it off, don't just be yanking on it. Just push this in, that's the lock, slide it up, boom, you're out. You can loosen this so that it's adjustable. Oh yeah, that should be enough. I mean, it doesn't hurt to just take it off altogether, but we don't want to scratch anything when we're removing this. So we want to make sure that we get it bang, bang, boom. This is actually pretty heavy compared to what we're replacing it with as well. Now that we've got all that stuff off, let's go ahead and put our spoiler brackets on here. All right, we're just gonna clean this up. I like keeping my engine base clean. So I've got a spare wing. This is the one from that competition that got bumped in the rear. So we're just gonna mark the position, and this is kind of a general position, but we're just gonna mark the position of where we want our rivet nuts. Honestly, this can kind of be eyeballed because the bracket itself has a bunch of adjustment built into it. Also, I've done this about 20 times. We're just gonna mark this right there, and then same here, right there. Do like a rough measurement. We'll just do to the center hole, 14 millimeters. And then from the side right here, we've got 25. All right, 14 and 25. Yeah, we were close, not quite. 14 would be right there. All right. So X marks the spot. So these are the actual brackets, and we'll clean these up before we do the final install, but we're gonna take off these side bolts right here, and we're just gonna set this in position, which will be about right there. And we're gonna make sure, see there's play side to side. That's why I said it doesn't have to be exact. This is part of why I like the factory wing so much, is because it truly is a functional chassis spoiler. All the other ones, they have like afterthoughts for brackets that hold them in place. It's just, I don't like that. There's no like engineering that went into it. It's just cheap engineering. All right, so this goes here. We're just doing this to match up. Double check my markings. So let's do 14. So we're gonna just compare the same thing because we just want to do this one time. Again, this thing has tons of adjustability, so if it's not perfect, use my tuning fork hammer. Mark our spot. The factory spoiler that I got came with everything. I got it from Lee C Parts, but I know Alex over there, and he's a really good dude to do business with. This is the kind of stuff they do. Like, they take something apart, they keep everything together, all the bolts, clips, whatever together. You get it as you need it, basically. I mean, he even included the LED tag lights that were on the car that they removed it from. So typically, the side bolts for this that I just removed that are like painted, they're chassis painted because they're installed before the chassis is actually painted. Typically these would replace it and they're a little bit longer, but it doesn't need the extra length because this is the extra thickness you're adding, and the tip of the bolt is already sticking through the rivet nut. So I pretty much just reuse the original bolts. If you're real particular about that kind of stuff and you just want it to be like factory, you could just use that bolt, it's fine. But you'll see when you go to install this on there, like that much is gonna be sticking out of the rivet nut. So it's really not necessary. So you have different rivet nuts and they typically tell you what the nominal thickness is. So you'll notice these rivet nuts, they're the same thread size, thread pitch and everything, but one's taller than the other. Same size diameter, and this section is longer. Well, this section is gonna correspond to how thick the metal is that they're going through. This is about the thickness of the metal that we're going through. So when this thing crimps, there's gonna be a whole bunch of extra metal there that's not gonna wanna pancake out. I'll show you the process in a minute. So we wanna use one that is smaller, that has a smaller section like this, because when this pancakes up, it's gonna flatten against this, and this knurled part is gonna grip it really well and keep it from spinning inside there. This is not what we're putting it through. We're putting it through the chassis. I'm just using that as a reference. We're gonna drill out the holes. They're big holes, but it's so that this rivet nut can fit through here. And so we're gonna show you how to drill the holes, how big of a hole to drill. And you can drill a hole that's too big, but you wanna get it as close to the right diameter as possible. This is aluminum. You don't need a special drill bit or anything for it. But this aluminum drills like better than wood, so it's not a big deal. You don't need to put too much pressure because you don't want to punch through it and then end up scratching up the bottom. Okay. So we're gonna measure the diameter of these, a little over 13. And this is 12. Go ahead and run this through because it's still not gonna be quite big enough. Let's clean up these chips real quick. Because of the tip of the bit and how soft this metal is, it actually cuts in the triangle shape.
There was that thing going in and out of that hole.
Oh. Should I put a condom on it? Dude, I use files probably more than most shop people do, because like stuff like this, like most people would be like, just make the hole bigger, just stick a, put this step bit in it and get it done. But like really, if you can make it as tight as possible, it gives it more for that knurl to hold on to, and it's worth the extra effort. You could also pose the argument, well, why not just get the right size drill bit? And that's a very valid argument. Unless you're using like a reamer tool, most of the time the slop of a drill bit is gonna make it too big. Yeah, that's it. Okay. I like the tightness. This is just a tiny step that is totally not necessary, and most people wouldn't consider it. But so we're just gonna do a tiny little bead around this now raw aluminum. Every one of these cars, they dip all of these panels so that all of the raw aluminum inside these channels that don't get painted, they still need to be coated so that the aluminum doesn't start to corrode over time, especially with like northern cars. So all we're doing is just getting rid of the extra raw aluminum. In 50 years, if I hadn't done that and you parked this thing in Winnipeg, you'd never know the difference, but I like to know that it's 100%. Okay, so here we get to do the fun stuff. I use my favorite tool. This is a tool by NCG. NCG makes random various tools, but this particular one is a metric mandrel rivet nut setter. This has a bunch of like fittings and things to make it tighter, but we don't need to make it tighter. To do this, you can stick this, you don't have it open when you're putting it on there, but you stick this part in and it's reverse threaded. It's reverse threaded so that when you go to unthread this tool, it doesn't loosen. When you go to unthread it from the actual rivet nut, it doesn't loosen up. I like to have a few threads sticking out, and then you kind of want this tight against this, because this part right here is what's gonna push against this rivet nut and compress it. So now all we have to do is jam it down in the hole, and we're gonna squeeze it, and they make a very nice, now you can actually rotate this way, so you can get two different exercises. Okay, it's easier than it looked. I'm just weak. Or I think they actually make a pneumatic version as well. All right, so now we got one rivet nut going for number 2, nice and tight. You just do it till it gets too tight to pull anymore. And what that's doing is it's compressing that knurled part. In fact, on the factory version, if you look right here, this is the knurl that's been compressed on there. The factory uses rivet nuts for all the body panels, chassis bolts, and things like that. Now all we have to do is put our bracket in place, and you'll see in a little bit exactly what this does. But the spoiler, the base of the spoiler sits on this, and we'll have to make adjustments to this, so I'm not going to tighten it yet. This is a one-piece carbon fiber piece. It's very light. You'll notice compared to the original, which was this, and then the active wing on top comprises of the rear base of a standard R8. Now the fixed wing version builds those into 2 pieces, and then it has just the base for the wing to sit inside of, which is the top of these brackets that we added. If you can find this as a factory piece, they're incredibly hard to come by. When I have them done, tape off the original part number on it so that you can tell it's an original piece. But I always take these out, the grill. These grills are super fragile. They're also rare and hard to find because everybody takes them off of the factory active wing. They cut them shorter for the base plate for the aftermarket wings. Once you cut it shorter, you can't make it longer again. So they're real hard to come by. I also take this structure, this plastic structure. This is gonna hold your backup camera, you're gonna fish your wires through here for your tag lights. These little sockets, this is actually the ball socket. They're gonna go on the ends here so that when you put this panel on the car, this socket is gonna slip over the ball on the tail light. That's gonna click it into position. You can adjust it in and out to make sure that when you push this in, you want this ball socket to fit snugly over that ball when you do it. If you go to put this on and you feel like you've got it in position and it's not doing that, then you can just turn this in or out. We're gonna stick our backup camera in here real quick to make sure that you get it right is just put it in reverse and make sure you don't have to flip it around. We can put our screws in. The only cars that didn't come from the factory with a backup camera were the GTs. In the name of weight savings, it was a silly thing to get rid of. There's a company in the UK that actually sells like the plug and play harness for it. So if you source the module and the camera, you can install it. Every GT I had, I think I added one, and I've added them for other people who have brought me GTs. It's just a silly thing not to have, but it's nice to have like the factory option because the factory option works with the factory radio, and most people don't want to get rid of the factory radio. 1, 2, 3. Just a quick reminder. This right here is just for noise. You're grounding this plate to help eliminate the heat stuff that the engine generates, produces a lot of noise, and then there's also other functions like the radio. We test fit. There's going to be a lot of test fitting on this. Hey, Blake, can you just hold this for a sec? Because I'm just going to adjust those brackets and then put it right back. This may also have changed the angle too. So tag lights. So tag lights we want to go. There's little holes in here. You just fit them in the holes. You can fish them through. Easy enough. All right, so there's that ball socket I was talking about. Now those are both clipped in. Now we want to line up our base plate with our spoiler bracket. We want this bracket to essentially be sitting exactly where this base plate is flush with this body line right here. I can reach this one here, tighten it down while I'm holding this into position, and that'll keep it in position enough for me to take it back off and tighten the other 2 bolts that are on there. So if you want to make it truly look 100% OEM, you can just put the part numbers back on there, which is kind of nerdy, but I think it's kind of cool. So this bolt, this little silver bolt, actually longer than most of the ones I put in here, but that's the bolt that goes right there. So it has these little pegs right here, these standoffs, and this is what's structural on here. There's a bolt on this bracket that's aiming through that basically it goes directly in between this. When you tighten that bolt down, it has a little bracket that it pulls in and it pinches these in there and it pressure holds these into position. So all you have to do when you have these brackets lined up is just drop this down, use this fixed mill. This is kind of tricky to do. There's a hole right here that this is gonna go into, and it's tricky to do with the engine bay trim in here, but it is doable. What I would recommend is just putting a piece of tape down on top of it. So you're just gonna tighten this up. You don't have to go crazy torquing this down. You just want it to be tight. Really, once you start just getting any kind of pressure on there, it's stuck on there pretty good. So